computing science. We have 2 more postgraduate degree programs. There's an MSc in data analytics, and we also have a conversion degree program. And anybody who has a BSc, I think they need a 2-1. They can enter the conversion program. And we also have 4 undergraduate degree programs. And I have to look at my information because 2 of them are new. They only start this coming year. And they're undergraduate degree program in data analytics. We have computer science and psychology, a general BSc, and then there's a digital humanities degree program as well. I have brochures, but I wasn't expecting this many people, so one of our secretaries is collecting a few more packets. They should arrive in a second. So I have one of these for each of you, but only 4. Well, I'm going to keep one, so so you can read what we do. It has all the information in it about the different degree programs, and I don't know what you want to know. So what I could do, I could just read out the kind of modules that we offer on the different programs, and then maybe say, let's answer some specific questions. The gentleman who's going to arrive at 9:30, he's very good at guided tours, so he's going to show you all our labs, and he'll be able to say a little bit more about the interactive media lab. I don't know anything about that. And he'll show you our facilities. At the undergraduate level, we have about, I think it's 600. I had to write it down. We have 500 undergraduates. For the MSc Computing Science, we have 30. The Data Analytics, we have 40. Interactive Media, 30. And the HDIP, which is the conversion program, we have 25. And they're all pretty stable numbers, except for Computing Science that went up a bit the last couple of years. It's very stable. So, will we wait until the brochures? Right, it shouldn't take long, so we can all read what's on the brochures. I think it's maybe easier. In the meantime, can I answer some questions? Does anybody have questions?
I just wanted to add a little bit. As I said, this is our course for the computer science department, and this is you should have an exact interest in the structure of the program. So the list of subjects. You just said this. Also, we have samples of. This is a master's thesis.
Yes, these are 2 sample theses from the MSc Computing Science from last year. They were the best. They got the best marks. I thought it was nice if they showed the best.
So you.
I'm not saying that they're very good, but they got the highest marks.
So maybe for those, I don't remember who is going to do the master course in computer science, but they can hold them, right?
Yeah.
As example for the master thesis.
Yes. I can also show some coursework for some of them, well, at least for one of the modules in the computing science and data analytics degree program. Because I was teaching it, so I have the project reports that the students had to write. They had to do data mining project, and they had to write a project report. So I can show you these as well, if you're interested. So usually for most of the modules, students, they submit assignments, coursework through Moodle. We have, dedicated labs for the different degree programs and the years in the undergraduate programs. So we have a 4th year lab, a 3rd year lab, 2nd year lab, 1st year lab for the undergraduates, and the MSc degree programs. They also have their own dedicated labs. So the students they can always join each other. We have a system admin group consisting of 4 people. We have our own internal network. We don't use the UCC. That was a little bit too slow for us. We have a general manager, 2 secretaries, and what you call it, a departmental registrar as well to support the administration.
So in total, how many people in department in total?
That's a good question. I should have looked it up. I think we have about 30 lecturers in the department.
And how many students?
Yes, so we have 500 undergraduate students, and at the MSc level we have 120. Sorry, at the MSc level we have about 125 higher diploma students. That's a conversion degree program.
Okay, so we don't. I'm from Alicante.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to help with the needs analysis.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll get to that stage for a while. Those numbers, you know.
Yeah.
But listen, and I would like to take this up with you. We were discussing it yesterday. The getting of data and IP problems. Have you encountered that?
I'm not sure if you understand the
For the
question.
students'
Yes.
research project.
Yes.
You know, if
Okay. Yes. So
if they're working with a company or something. You know,
Yes.
handing over data and IP problems.
We don't have many students doing projects with companies. We do have some.
Yeah.
Usually the MSc students, they get a supervisor, a member from the academic staff. They propose projects, and the students, they select a project. So usually it's the academic staff that propose the projects, and there's not really a problem with data.
Okay.
Not that I'm aware of. With companies, obviously, it's a little bit more complicated.
Yeah.
And that's also because of the university's policy, because they also want to own, intellectual property and stuff. But we do have some students working with companies on their projects, and they're mainly for the data analytics projects.
And so would you have agreements with those companies?
I think we do. I actually prepared one of these agreements. I had a proposal because there are some legal problems as well. And this was for the MSc Computing Science, but at the very last moment it was decided that we were not going to do any projects with companies because some staff felt that it was better if students stayed in-house.
Yeah. It's becoming more and more.
Yeah.
And then I've had experience where the funding body wanted to impose a consultant along with supervisors. Yeah, which doesn't really work academically.
So that there are problems.
Yeah.
So
as far as I know, these colleagues from Guatemala and El Salvador are going to initially have to rely on the public sector, the private sector.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll see after we get the feedback from the needs analysis. But Okay, thanks for that.
All right. Or maybe I shall start reading out some of the modules that we teach you, the different degree programs, and then I would think in a few minutes the secondary.
Mostly for the master's program.
Okay,
that's just if you could maybe start from the general
computer science,
from the general numbers. Let's say, for example, in master programs. So we have, let's say, 2 semesters. Plus the third one doing thesis. I guess that's the same.
So that's the same with us as well. All the masters programs, they have a structure where in the first 2 semesters the students, they take modules, taught modules, about 2/3 of which are mandatory and the other ones are electives. And then if they pass all the modules at first attempt and get 60% on aggregate, then they're allowed to do a research project in the last part of the year. And all the degree programs, all the master's programs, they have that structure. It's very, very popular. So first they take lectures, and if they're good enough, then they can do a research project. According to the book of modules, these research projects are supposed to be a student work. It's just supposed to be unsupervised, but in reality, there's always going to be supervision required. Since the projects are in the summer, it's not always convenient. Also in UCC, when there's no teaching, so if there are no lectures, members of academic staff are allowed to do anything they want. They can do any research they want. So if you have to do project supervision, it's also not so nice. So that's the general background. So for the MSc Computing Science, we have a number of core modules. There's a case studies in computing entrepreneurship. I'm not going to read all the descriptions because it's going to take too long. We have 2 modules in large-scale application development and integration, 2 database modules, and a project development skills, which is supposed to prepare the students for their research project. Also, as part of that module, they do a literature survey in the general area of their project. And then the last core module is the dissertation in computing science, so that's the research project. Then we have a number of elective modules for the different semesters, and some of them, they are inherited from another MSc degree program in mobile computing. So we have mobile network protocols, mobile devices and systems, mobile application design, formal methods for distributed systems, module-based software development, optimization, virtualization technologies, and a module which is offered by the stats department, statistics department, introduction to probability and statistics. So students who are taking the data mining module, which is offered in semester 2, they have to take that module because they generally don't have the statistical background that's required. And then in semester 2, we have services and mobile middleware, mobile system security, cellular network services, multimedia technology in mobile networks, analysis of networks and complex systems, network security, and data mining. Now, not all of these modules are offered every year. So some of them, they've never been offered. I think there's one or 2 modules. But usually we offer most modules. And we need a minimum number of students, 5 usually, but we usually get enough students who are interested in it, except for one module, which had to be cancelled because there were only 1 or 2 students who were interested in it.
Did you say 5 students?
Yeah.
Is the minimum?
Yes, that's usually the minimum. I was teaching one module at the undergraduate level. This was the first time teaching it. I had 5 students at the start, so I could teach it. I was allowed to teach it anyway. Margaret, thank you very much.
Thank you.
But 2 students, they left. They could still continue teaching it. I was already given permission to teach it, and next year I'll have some more students. So for the MSc in data science and analytics, and by the way, some of these the modules we're teaching, the different degree programs, they're shared. For example, the data mining module is both in the data science and analytics, and it's also offered in the computing science degree program. And we have some of the other modules that are offered in the computing science degree program. There are also suppose students in the data science and analytics degree program, they can also take them. By the way, this is Dave Murphy. He's the degree coordinator of the MSc Interactive Media. I started. So this is exactly the same structure. Their core modules, 30 credits, elective modules, 30 credits, and a dissertation, 30 credits. And the entry requirements for the MSc Data Science and Analytics are first-class honours. For the MSc Computing Science, it's a 2H2. We're hoping to increase it because we have a higher demand now, and we're getting too many students. So the core modules for the MSc Data Science and Analytics are data mining, foundation of statistical data analytics, and by the way, this degree program is offered jointly with the statistics department. Then there's generalized linear modeling techniques, database technology, and information storage and retrieval. So these are also two modules that are offered in the MSc Computing Science. Introduction to relational databases and database design and administration. And then there are electives, optimization, analysis of networks and complex systems, internet computing for data science, stochastic modeling techniques, multivariate methods for data analysis, operations research, and stochastic decision science. Now this is a mixed bag of students in this degree program, because some of them they have a background in computer science and some of them they don't, but they have a background in mathematics or a science background. So students who don't have any programming background, they have to take a programming in Python module and a programming in Python with data science applications. And students with adequate programming experience, they have to take these two large-scale application development and integration modules, which I mentioned earlier on, for the MSc in Computing Science. And then they have two, then there's one more module and the two different codes on the brochure, because it's offered both in the stats department and in the computer science department, and that's the dissertation. Will I let you do the MSc Interactive Media?
Yeah, sure. If you want to continue on,
okay.
Okay. At the end, or?
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Just, while it's in my head. So, to progress to a PhD,
Yeah.
is 50% okay, or do you require higher?
No, I think we require a 2-1. So they need.
So what's that in your terms?
I think that's 60%.
60% minimum.
60%.
60%
Yeah,
minimum
yeah.
to progress to doctoral status.
Yes.
Minimum.
Yeah.
You need to be first.
Yeah, and they
Which is 70.
and they need a
Yeah,
they
I
need
would
a
have thought so, yeah.
they need a supervisor. We don't have any taught PhD.
Sorry?
We don't have any taught PhD.
Oh, right, so
We don't have
that's,
taught PhD
and
program.
do you have an internal and external supervisor, or
Yes, we do.
for PhD?
Yeah. We have the thesis advisor, and there's also
Second supervisor?
yeah,
or
second
advisor?
supervisor. After 1 year, the student has to give a presentation about the topic of study,
Yeah.
what they're going to do, what they think they're going to do, and then usually towards the end of the thesis, the supervisor and the student, they try to find an external supervisor who's going to examine the student, because the supervisor isn't allowed to examine the student.
No, and so is it just, because I'm originally from Australia,
Yeah.
and we follow the Oxford system, so, because this has got 2 lines, professional and jump to PhD. So, wait a minute, what was I going to ask you? So So it's only the thesis that gets presented, or is there this 15,000 word resume of the thesis as well?
So there are a number of pathways for a
Right.
PhD
Yeah.
in the university, and our school focuses more on the traditional four-year model.
Yeah.
There is a structured PhD system in the university. We haven't exercised it in any great anger at all.
Right. Okay.
So the structured PhD incorporates some taught elements.
Yeah.
So from year one, the student's taking modules typically at postgraduate level.
Yeah.
So from taught master's programs, they can cherry pick up to 15 to 20 credits, depending on what year in the structured PhD they're in. But at the end of the 4-year process, they're still submitting a thesis. There's a different weight on the thesis to reflect the fact that they've taken credits and modules in other programs. But it's still a substantial body of work, and it has to be original work as well.
But
So,
it's only the thesis and the coursework.
For the structured PhD, yes.
Okay.
We don't have the professional PhD.
No.
We do
No.
have a PhD by publication, but that's typically in the academics.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not-
I don't know what
Yeah.
they will be allowed to do, what their ministries will allow them to do.
Yeah. I also,
The thing I wanted to clarify was only the thesis.
yeah, I also forgot to mention that there's also always at least one internal examiner as well.
Yes.
So that's a
Yeah.
member of our own academic staff.
Sure.
So in our supervisory team, we have the primary supervisor and a secondary supervisor. And when it comes to the examination, then
External.
exactly, supervisors cannot be part of the
Yeah.
examination.
Yeah, because the Hispanic, well, the European, continental European is always presented in front of a panel
A
of
panel,
experts.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and then in England it's always accompanied by a 15,000 word summary
Mhm.
of, in many cases, not always, summary of the actual dissertation.
Depending on the body of work, I mean, the words range from 80 to 120,000 words for a PhD thesis.
Yeah.
But there might be a greater emphasis on, say, algorithmic frameworks development and so on. So that would be reflected in the balance of the submission. But primarily the submission is the thesis.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Right.
Okay.
Have you mentioned the,
I haven't mentioned them yet.
okay. So, yeah, or, okay. So, I'm the director coordinator of the MSc in Interactive Media. And this program is one of the longest running programs in Ireland. It was one of the very first taught masters introduced. So this program was modelled on the Stanford model of taught masters. It was originally designed back in 1998. Now it has since been refined and changed, and you know, we periodically review our programs to make sure that they're relevant and current and so on. So this model is a two-part master's. So there's the taught element and then there's the project element. Students must meet the progression requirements to go from part 1 to part 2. So in this program, that means that they have to achieve an aggregate of 50% across all modules. They must pass all modules on first attempt. So that means they cannot repeat a module and then proceed to the master's. And then the part 2 is a full-time undertaking of a project, and that runs for 4 months over the summer period.
Can I interrupt you? Because I forgot to mention one thing. So I also mentioned it that students, they have to pass all modules at first attempt. So if they fail a module, it doesn't mean that they don't get a diploma. They get a
diploma.
They get a, well, they don't get an MC. They get a diploma. Yeah. If they pass the module, eventually.
And that's something we would strongly advise, because you will always encounter situations where someone, for whatever reason, doesn't meet the requirements to proceed to part 2. They should leave with something. Okay, so we have an exit path for them, which is a diploma, a postgraduate diploma. So that reflects then that they have passed, they still need to pass all of the modules, but they're not of standard to go on and complete the masters. So at the end of their 1-year academic year, taught component, they will leave with a diploma saying that they've done the modules, they've passed the modules, and that's it. If they meet the progression requirements, then as Mark mentioned, they will proceed to the project. And the project is quite substantial. It's 1/3 of the degree, and it involves supervision. So every student will have a supervisor. They will have regular contact. Typically, the projects incorporate some form of an implementation or a deliverable. Occasionally, we have research-oriented projects, but that is something that's decided between the supervisor and the student, where the emphasis lies in terms of the project itself. The project submission then, at the end, is a 15,000-word dissertation, which is a minor thesis and a body of work. So usually that's a prototype, or it's an experiment, or it's a collection of tests that have been run to test some theory or some argument that's been made in the thesis. That culminates then in an open day, where the students then will present their findings to the class and to visitors from industry, and then that's in part of the examination process then at that stage. With regards to the MSc in Interactive Media, we have structured the taught part of this course to have to be balanced across the semesters. So we have 2 primary semesters, semester 1, semester 2. In semester 1, all of the modules are core modules. All students have to take all of those modules. Those are seen as foundational modules that they must pass before they can then go on to do semester 2. In semester 2, we have a range of electives that allows the student then to specialise. Now, in the MSc in Interactive Media, it's very much about multimedia and about interactive media. So we're looking at the human side of computing, and there we have a range of modules that cover things like the actual media types themselves, over to design principles and human-computer interaction principles for software development and for system development. We differentiate ourselves on this program from other, let's say, competing programs in Ireland and in England by focusing on the technical aspects. I think that's very important when you're designing your system, that you look across the offerings across all of the institutions and universities and make that differentiation. So we place a lot of emphasis on the technical, the programming aspect of software development for people. Another differentiator that we have is we work very closely on all of our programs with industry. Cork is a recognised centre for the IT industry, and particularly when it comes to things like projects, we solicit project suggestions from industry. So we will go out into industry and say, give us your ideas. Is there something you want a student to explore, to examine? You mightn't have the bandwidth, you mightn't have the resources in-house to trial it. This is a safe space where students will do that job of work for you, and that will inform them whether you should pursue that more or back off from it completely. So it's a win-win for both sides, because then we get real-world projects. It's very grounded for the students, and the students then for their CV can say, I worked on an Apple project, I worked on a Microsoft project, I worked on an Amazon project, whatever. But that's very strong for them as a selling point for their careers, etc. So we have the European credit system. So in the design of our programs, we place a lot of emphasis on the 5-credit module. That gives us flexibility, because another thing that's come up for us is we want to avoid duplication of modules. So this is one standalone program, but there are many other programs that feed from this, likewise with other programs. So that enables us then to offer one module or 2 modules from this into a different program, where the prerequisites and the core requisites allow for a student to take modules from here. From a school perspective, that allows us then to optimize the classrooms and the offerings and the resourcing of modules, etc. All of our modules incorporate a 2-hour lecture per week, and at a minimum 1 lab per week. So in the classroom, in the lecture, we'll cover the fundamentals, the theory, etc. And then in the practical lab sessions, we'll do implementation. So the students then have an opportunity to actually experience by doing that material that's covered.
Do you do any peer-to-peer review?
Not formally.
Not formally.
Not formally. So all students are assessed individually, and they're assessed by the module examiner. So that is also the lecturer. So in our system, the lecturer is the examiner for each module. Now, within the module, it is entirely possible that, and I have colleagues who do this, that they will allow for peer-to-peer. So each module in its assessment has continuous assessments and then a formal exam. So the formal exam is an invigilated exam. Usually it's the largest part of the marks going for the course. So on this program, the MSc Interactive Media, it's an applied program. So there's a bigger emphasis on practical work. So a lot of our modules are 60-40%. So 60% for the exam, 40% for the practical work, or 70-30, 80-20, those divisions. And that then allows, and that reflects the emphasis of the practical content in a particular module.
Can I say so?
Yeah.
So for the MSc in Data Analytics and Computing Science, it's 80-20%. And we usually have two exams that are worth about 30 credits, 40 credits each. So one midterm, one end of semester.
40 credits each for the exam.
Oh, so, yeah, 40%. 40%.
40%.
Yeah. So we have two exams. Officially, they're not university exams, but they're in-class examinations.
Yeah, the two formal exams and the 80% is split between the two.
Oh, because it's a fly, yeah.
And just in terms of assessment then, within the continuous assessment, so let's say take one module from this, let's say it's a 60-40 module, it is up to the lecturer then to decide how to spend the 40%, because the subject changes from year to year. I mean, we're in computing, every 6 months stuff changes, and so we can't be handcuffed or tied to a module description that's 2 years old or 3 years old. So each year then the lecturer, who is the examiner, will decide how am I going to assess my classes on these particular topics. So that ranges from peer-to-peer assessment, group work. We don't put too much emphasis on group work because it's difficult to assess.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult to unpack who did what and how much credit they should get for that. So our solution is we don't do that, not formally anyway. And then within the 40%, for instance, in this case, it could be programming assignments, it may be a technical report, or it could be a combination of the above. So you can have small little assessments throughout the module. 5 credits in our system is 12 weeks. So if we were running 2-hour lectures for a 5-credit module, that would be 1 semester. And then at the end of the semester, we have our final exam then for that particular module. An interesting thing to note about our system is that if a student fails a module in semester 1, they need to wait until autumn to repeat. So there is no option for them to repeat immediately or in semester 2. Now the advantage of that is they have a whole the remaining year to prepare for that exam, and the disadvantage is they have the whole year to wait for the exam. And it works in practice because it's an additional penalty. The students know I had better make the effort because otherwise I'd be waiting around for the summer before I can get my diploma, or I can move on from here. Also in practical,
what percentage of the students can afford to wait?
Okay. So on our taught modules, students pay a registration fee, which is in truth a fee. Okay, it's just a nice way of saying there's a fee for this. Even though theoretically in the Irish system, students get 1 undergraduate for free and they get 1 postgraduate for free. But that doesn't work out that way because the registration fee for an undergraduate is $3,500 a year, and for a master's, so for instance on this program or MSc Interactive Media, it's $7,500.
These are for the Irish.
And these are for EU students. For non-EU students, it's double.
It's higher, yeah.
It's double.
Much higher.
Yeah.
So you're looking at 15 to 16,000 on average.
And do you offer any scholarships?
Yes.
Any industry scholarships, or where does the money come from?
So we don't offer industry scholarships because there's too much quid pro quo involved in that.
Yeah.
The College of SEFs offers a reduction for non-EU students based on a number of criteria. So it might be early registration. So if you register early, you might get €1,000 off, for instance. Or if you're from a disadvantaged area, then there might be a reduction on
Yeah.
that side. And it depends on region, country to country.
Yeah, yeah.
But there is this notion of a bursary, for instance. The fees are high, but the demand is high,
Yeah.
and that also drives this.
Yeah. I don't know their landscape well enough to be able to hazard a guess at what their ministries will allow them to do.
Yeah.
But I just know that in Europe, gosh, I mean, in Alicante you can do a master
Mhm.
for €1,000.
Mhm.
A 6-month master.
So,
Cost of
and
living is also very high.
And so we've recognised this, and over the years we've refined our programs, etc. So on the MSc Interactive Media, we have a lot of international students who travel to this program, and not just your, let's say, usual suspects. So yes, we have a large contingency cohort from China and from India. These are the big expansion countries. But on this program, we would have regular intake from Germany, from France, from the US. Now, we're talking maybe on average 2 to 3 per country. You know, and the reason they're coming here is because of the reputation.
And the non-speaking English students have to be proficient, demonstrate proficiency?
So they need an IELTS of 6.5 with no individual element less than 6. We would err on a 7.
And how would you define your students in terms of age and professional background?
Yeah.
So the different programs have different demographics.
In general, for let's say for computer science
So-
masters, like average.
Yep.
Your average student.
is-
Yeah.
They graduate from their undergraduate degree program and then they do the masters.
So
We get-
youngsters straight
Yeah.
ahead from the
Yeah.
professional.
We do
So
get
you don't have a huge mature age?
no, we do get the odd student who's worked in industry for 2 to 3 years and then decides they want to work in Ireland, so they can't. They have to study here first. So that's the usual entry path. And we get applications from people who've worked in the industry but really haven't got any computer science background at university level, BC level, and they're trying to come in, but we usually don't accept them because they
So you
don't
don't
have.
give them a pathway?
Well,
We do have it, but in our opinion, they usually don't have the required background. We wouldn't do them a favour if we accepted them because they wouldn't pass.
and there's a couple of other things associated with that. The IT industry is so healthy
Yeah.
that we are in competition with industry for graduates. So all of our undergraduates by year 3, going into year 4, have full-time employment ready. So coming out of work placements, the year 3 our undergraduate is internship work placement. The companies that they've spent time in usually offer them contracts for when they graduate. So they're not going into higher education, postgraduate education. And there is a dire shortage in Ireland for qualified computer scientists. And so we tend to find that the postgraduates are either the special individuals who are academically focused and want to go on and do further studies, or they're international students who mightn't have the same industry sector back home. Now, not all of our programs are the same. So Mark has described the situation with regards to the MSc in Computer Science, and that applies to data analytics as well. The MSc in Interactive Media is a conversion program. So we have tailored this for non-computer scientists. So we take students who have a high honours degree in their primary degree, and we will take them on, so it's a 2-1 level normally we aim for, and over the course of the 1 year we will cover the fundamentals of multimedia, interactive media, and get them to the stage then where when they're undertaking a project, it's on par with our other masters project. It's intense, it's tough going, we're conscious of retention, but there is an attrition. We tend to lose maybe 1 or 2 students every year, but that's inevitable when it's a conversion program.
That's not bad.
Yeah. But it's a lot of effort. It takes a lot of work. Okay. So.
It's like kind of propedeutics or something. Propedéuticos.
Okay.
Estudios propedéuticos, que son los que se tienen que tomar antes de, no sé cómo se dice en inglés.
Entry requirements.
Yes, so all of our programs have entry requirements listed here. Okay, so if you look at all of the masters, you can see that we have, where's it moved to? It's moved, sorry, it's on the back of the page, top section. And so in that section it tells you the academic qualification necessary, the minimum. It also tells you the language requirements, minimum.
I think that she was talking about in some masters that we have in Guatemala, we have 3 month courses before they get into the master degree, so they can.
So it's called a qualification period.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So that doesn't fit here for a very simple reason. It's 1 year. So the new model internationally for the top masters is a 1 year in and out. So there is a pre-qualification stage for languages. So if someone is not meeting the IELTS requirement, the university through the academy will organise for language training during the summer before they start the program. But that's not the same as a qualification period for someone's background.
Yeah.
So this was designed as a conversion program, so we're starting from first principles. There are no apologies, it's full on, and so it's very intense. We demand, their full attendance and application.
And this is studying during the daytime, right? So you don't have the afternoon lectures or starting evenings
So
or whatever.
they are full time.
So this is
Yes,
full time,
it's
people come in
full
at 9
time,
o'clock
yeah.
and then just attend the lectures. So basically they just like continuing doing their...
Not quite, not quite. So the university has a 16-hour contact time arrangement for all postgraduate students. So that's the amount of class time that a student will get. Now it varies from 16 to 18 depending on the school, for instance. But under the Bologna system, students are expected to fill in the rest of the time with study, independent, self-learning, self-directed learning. And that's an expectation. So if I come into class and a student hasn't read the material, that's their issue. That will be reflected in the examination.
Yeah. So for example, if these universities got to a stage where they could be sending students